Please, we'll leave. Just don't call anyone. A widowed man bought an abandoned farmhouse to escape the ghosts of his past. 3 little boys broke into it because they had nowhere else to go. When he found them hiding in the shadows, hungry, terrified, and desperate, he faced a choice: turn them in or let 3 strangers save his life. This is the story of how broken people become family. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from. We love seeing how far our stories travel. Marcus Sullivan stood in the doorway of the old farmhouse, his truck keys still in his hand. The late afternoon light filtered through cracked windows, casting long shadows across the dusty wooden floors. He'd bought this place 3 months ago, a foreclosure nobody wanted, 5 hours outside the city. Far enough from everything, far enough from the memories, he was here to check on the property before starting renovations. Maybe next month, maybe never. He hadn't decided yet, but something was wrong. The front door, he'd locked it last time. Now it hung slightly ajar. Marcus pushed it open slowly. The hinges creaked. He stepped inside, listening. The house was supposed to be empty, silent, forgotten. Instead, he heard breathing. His eyes adjusted to the dim light. In the far corner of the living room, behind an overturned table, 3 small figures curled together on the floor, covered by a single threadbare blanket. Dark hair stuck up at odd angles from makeshift pillows. Old jackets bundled up. Their faces were dirty, peaceful in sleep. Children, 3 little boys, sleeping in his abandoned farmhouse. Marcus's boot scraped against the floor. All 3 pairs of eyes flew open. They scrambled backward, pressing against the wall, clutching each other. Fear, pure, raw fear, flooded their faces. The one in the middle stood up first, positioning himself in front of the other 2. His chin trembled, but he lifted it anyway. His voice came out desperate and cracking. Please, we'll leave. Just don't call anyone. Marcus stood frozen, his mind trying to catch up with what he was seeing. These weren't teenagers sneaking in for a dare. These were children, little kids, 7, maybe 8 years old. How long have you been here? His voice came out rougher than he meant it to. The boy who'd spoken swallowed hard. A few weeks. He nodded quickly. We didn't break anything. We were really careful. We just needed somewhere to sleep. Somewhere dry. Marcus ran a hand through his short brown hair. This couldn't be happening. He'd come here for peace, for emptiness, for escape. Not this. Where are your parents? The question seemed to drain something out of the boy. His shoulders sagged. Gone. Where? Just gone. Marcus looked at the 3 of them. Really looked. Same dark hair, same brown eyes, wide with terror. Same thin faces that spoke of too many missed meals. What are your names? The boy hesitated, then answered quietly. Liam. That's Ethan. He pointed to the boy on his left. And that's Noah, the smallest one on his right, clutching a worn stuffed dinosaur. How old are you? 7? All of us. All of you. We're triplets, Ethan said softly. Born 3 minutes apart? Triplets, 7 years old, living in an abandoned farmhouse. Marcus crouched down slowly, trying not to spook them further. I'm Marcus. This is my house. We know, Liam said quickly. We thought it was abandoned. We didn't know anyone was coming back. We'll go. Just please don't call the police. The desperation in his voice hit Marcus like a fist to the chest. Why not? Liam's eyes filled with tears. He was fighting hard not to shed. Because we can't go back. We can't. Marcus felt the air leave his lungs. He should walk away, call the authorities. Let someone who knew what they were doing handle this. But looking at these 3 small boys, clinging to each other like it was the only thing keeping them alive, something in his chest cracked open. When did you eat last? The boys exchanged glances. We're okay, Liam lied. Marcus stood up. I'm going to get food. You stay here. You're not calling? I'm not calling anyone. Not yet. Just stay here. He walked out before they could respond, before he could change his mind, before he could think too hard about what he was doing. Marcus returned 40 minutes later with bags from the diner in town, burgers, fries, chicken tenders, apple juice boxers. The boys were exactly where he'd left them, huddled together like they expected him to come back with police. When they saw the food, their eyes went wide. Eat, Marcus said, setting the bags down. They didn't need to be told twice. They tore into the food like starving animals, and Marcus realized that's probably what they were. Starving, desperate, abandoned. He sat on the floor across from them, watching them eat, trying to figure out what the hell he was supposed to do. When they'd finished every last fry, Liam wiped his mouth and looked at him. "Thank you. You going to tell me what's really going on?" Liam looked at his brothers, took a shaky breath, and started talking. "Our mom died 6 months ago. She had cancer. It took a long time." Marcus's chest tightened. "I'm sorry." Liam nodded, his eyes distant. "Our dad, he was never around. Even when Mom was alive, he'd disappear for days, drinking mostly. After she died, it got worse. He'd leave us alone for weeks. The power got shut off. We ran out of food. We were just alone." "What about your relatives? No one took you in after your mother died?" Marcus asked softly. "No," Liam murmured. "Mom didn't have any siblings, and her parents died when she was young. Our dad's brothers and sisters, they didn't want us. They said we'd be a burden." Marcus's chest tightened. These 3 7-year-olds had endured more pain than most adults ever would. Ethan picked at his sleeve. "People started noticing. Teachers, neighbors. We knew someone would call social services soon, and then they'd split you up," Marcus said quietly. "Yeah," Liam's voice cracked. "But before Mom died in the hospital, she made us promise. She held all our hands and said, 'You stay together, no matter what. You're brothers. You protect each other,' we promised her. We can't break that promise." Noah spoke for the first time, his voice barely a whisper. "Mama said families don't give up on each other." Marcus had to look away. He knew about promises made to the dying. He'd made one himself on a hospital bed a year ago, holding his wife's hand while machines beeped around them. "Take care of our girl, Marcus. Keep her safe." He tried, but safe wasn't enough when a drunk driver ran a red light on a Tuesday morning while Marcus stayed home to fix a stupid leaking pipe. "So you ran," Marcus said. Liam nodded. "We took a bus 3 hours away. We figured no one would recognize us here. We slept under benches at first, behind buildings, ate whatever we could find in dumpsters behind restaurants." His voice was matter-of-fact, like he was describing a normal Tuesday. "Then there was a big storm one night. We were soaking wet, freezing. We saw this house. The back window was loose. We climbed in. It was dry, quiet, empty. We thought maybe we could stay for a few days. That was 3 weeks ago." "3 weeks," Marcus said. "Yeah." Marcus leaned back against the wall. 3 weeks. These kids had been living here for 3 weeks, and he had no idea. "Your father, you know where he is now?" Liam's face hardened. "Some bar, probably. He doesn't care where we are. He never did." Marcus closed his eyes. This was insane. These weren't his kids. This wasn't his responsibility. He'd come here to be alone, to figure out how to keep living when every breath felt like he was betraying the family he'd lost. But when he opened his eyes, 3 small faces were staring at him with the kind of hope that was almost painful to see. "Please," Liam whispered. "Just let us stay tonight. It's supposed to rain. We'll leave in the morning. We won't bother you again." Marcus looked at them, really looked at their matted hair and dirty faces, at their thin arms and the fear in their eyes, at the way they held on to each other like letting go meant drowning. He thought about his daughter Lily, who'd been 7 when she died, who'd loved building blanket forts and asking impossible questions about dinosaurs, who'd never gotten the chance to turn 8. "You can stay," Marcus heard himself say. The relief that washed over Liam's face nearly broke him. "Tonight," he added quickly. "We'll figure out tomorrow when it comes." But as Marcus watched the boys curl up together under their thin blanket, exhaustion pulling them back towards sleep, he had a sinking feeling that tomorrow wouldn't be nearly as simple as tonight. Marcus spent that night in his truck, parked in the driveway. He couldn't leave. What if something happened? What if they ran? What if they needed something? But he also couldn't stay inside. It felt too real. He stared at the farmhouse through the windshield as rain started to patter against the roof. Inside those walls were 3 little boys who should be home with parents who loved them, should be safe and fed, and tucked into warm beds. Instead, they were sleeping on a cold floor, clinging to each other because it was all they had. Marcus pulled out his phone. He should call someone. Child services, the police, someone who knew how to handle this properly. His finger hovered over the screen. Then he thought about what Liam had said, the promise to their dying mother, the fear of being torn apart. He put the phone away. The next morning, Marcus woke to sun streaming through the truck windows. His neck ached from sleeping slumped in the driver's seat. He climbed out, stretching, and walked toward the farmhouse. Inside, the boys were awake, sitting together near the window, talking in hushed voices. They jumped when he entered. "Morning," Marcus said. "Morning," Liam replied carefully, like he was waiting for him to tell them to leave. "You like eggs?" The boys blinked at him. "I'm asking if you like scrambled eggs." "We like anything," Ethan said softly. Marcus almost smiled. "All right, let's see what I can do." The farmhouse kitchen was barely functional. Ancient stove, cracked counters, no running water yet. But Marcus had bought some supplies from the convenience store on the way back last night. He managed to scramble eggs in a dented pan he'd found in one of the cabinets. The boys ate in silence, sitting on the floor because there was no table, no chairs, just an empty house that Marcus had planned to renovate someday. When they finished, Marcus sat down across from them. "So, here's the deal," he said. "I can't just let you keep living here like this. You're 7 years old. You need school. You need to see a doctor. You need more than this." Noah's face went hard. "We're not going to foster care. I didn't say foster care." "Then what are you saying?" "Good question." Marcus wasn't entirely sure himself. "I'm saying we need to figure this out properly. Legally. How? I don't know yet." Liam studied him with those sharp brown eyes. "Why are you helping us?" "Because someone should," Marcus said simply. It wasn't much of an answer, but it was the truth. That day, Marcus went into town and bought supplies. Air mattresses, sleeping bags, pillows, basic toiletries, clothes that might actually fit. The boys watched with wide eyes as he carried everything inside. "You don't have to do this," Liam said quietly. "Yeah, I do." "Why?" Marcus didn't answer. He wasn't sure he could put it into words. He just knew that walking away wasn't an option anymore. Over the next few days, a strange routine formed. Marcus would drive into town each morning to get food. He'd fix small things around the farmhouse, the leaking roof, the broken window, the busted front step. The boys stayed quiet, watching him like they were waiting for him to disappear. But he kept coming back. Slowly, carefully, they started to relax around him. One afternoon, Marcus found Liam trying to heat something on the stove. He was standing on a chair, frowning at a pot of boiling water. "What are you making?" he asked. Liam jumped, startled. "Oh, pasta, I think. Mama used to make it." "I'm trying to remember how much water she used." Marcus stepped beside him. "Mind if I help?" Liam hesitated, then nodded. Together, they figured it out. The pasta was a little overcooked, and the jar sauce was bland. But when all four of them sat on the floor and ate together, something settled in Marcus's chest. It felt like dinner, like family, like something he thought had died a year ago. A week passed, then 2. Marcus found himself spending more time at the farmhouse. He told himself it was just to make sure the boys were okay, to fix things up, to figure out what to do. But the truth was, the emptiness that had been suffocating him for a year felt a little lighter when he was here. The boys were starting to talk more, to smile, to act like kids instead of survivors. One evening, Ethan found an old basketball in the attic, covered in dust and cobwebs. He dragged it downstairs, his eyes bright. "Do you play?" he asked Marcus. "Used to, long time ago. Will you teach us?" Marcus hesitated. He hadn't touched a basketball since before the accident. Sports hurt too much. Reminded him of Rachel, who used to cheer from the sidelines. Reminded him of Lily, who'd dribble the ball with both hands and giggle when Marcus tried to teach her proper form. But Ethan was looking at him with such hope that he couldn't say no. They went outside to the overgrown yard. Marcus showed them how to dribble, how to shoot. The ball was half deflated, and there was no hoop, but they didn't care. They laughed and ran and played until the sun started to set. "That was really fun," Noah said, smiling. Marcus's throat tightened. "Thanks, kid." 2 months in, Marcus realized something had shifted. He was sleeping at the farmhouse now on an air mattress in what used to be the master bedroom. The boys had their own room down the hall, 3 sleeping bags lined up side by side because they refused to sleep apart. He'd gotten the electricity turned on properly, fixed the plumbing, bought a table and chairs from a thrift store, started making the house livable, and the boys, they were laughing now, really laughing. Liam had started helping him with repairs, handing him tools and asking questions about everything. Ethan played basketball every evening before bed, his aim getting better with each attempt. Noah drew pictures constantly, mostly of 4 people standing in front of a house holding hands. Marcus kept every single one. One night, he realized he'd gone a full day without thinking about the accident, without being crushed by guilt, without feeling like he was betraying Rachel and Lily by still being alive. He was in the kitchen washing dishes when it hit him he'd laughed today. Actually laughed at something silly, Liam said, at Ethan's terrible knock-knock jokes, at Noah's drawing of a dog that looked more like a blob. He hadn't laughed in a year. But with these 3 little boys in his house, it was easier. The grief was still there. It would always be there. But it wasn't the only thing anymore. Marcus knew what he was doing was illegal. He had essentially taken in 3 runaway children without contacting authorities. If anyone found out, he could face serious consequences. But every time he thought about calling social services, he remembered the fear in Liam's eyes. The way all 3 of them clung to each other. The promise they'd made to their dying mother. He couldn't do that to them. The bond between them was growing deeper. It was gradual, a slow building of trust that couldn't be rushed, but it was real. Liam started calling him Marcus instead of Mr. Ethan would sit beside him while he worked on the house, trying to copy his techniques. Noah began leaving his drawings in places he knew he'd find them on his pillow, by the coffee maker, tucked into his truck. And Marcus started to care, really care, about whether they were eating enough, about whether they were safe, about whether they were happy. One Saturday, he took them into town. A risk, but they needed clothes that fit properly. At the thrift store, the boys tried on outfit after outfit, making each other laugh, trying on oversized shirts and backwards caps. It was the most normal thing Marcus had done in months. As they walked out with bags of clothes, Liam looked up at him. "Thank you. For what? For not treating us like we're problems." Marcus stopped walking. "You're not problems? Everyone else thought we were. Then everyone else was wrong." Liam smiled, a real, genuine smile that lit up his whole face. And Marcus realized something terrifying. He didn't want them to leave. 3 months after finding the boys, Marcus was woken in the middle of the night by sounds from down the hall. Crying. He sat up immediately, heart pounding. He threw on a shirt and walked quickly to the boys' room. The door was cracked open. Inside, he could hear Liam's voice, thick with tears. "We have to stay together no matter what. We promised Mama, we promised." Marcus pushed the door open gently. All 3 boys were awake, sitting up in their sleeping bags, crying. Liam had his arms around his brothers. "Hey," Marcus said softly. "What's wrong?" They all jumped, startled. Liam wiped his eyes quickly. "Nothing. We're fine. You're not fine. You're crying." Liam looked at his brothers, then back at Marcus. We were talking about Mama, and what if you decide you don't want us here anymore? What if you send us away, and they separate us? What if we can't keep our promise?" Marcus's heart broke. He walked over and sat down on the floor beside them. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "I'm not sending you anywhere, but you could, any day you could decide, we're too much trouble, you're not trouble." But what if Liam waited until he looked at him? "I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you, any of you." "You mean that?" Ethan whispered. Marcus looked at each of them, at Liam, fierce and protective, at Ethan, sweet and hopeful, at Noah, quiet and observant. These 3 little boys who'd been failed by every adult in their lives, who'd survived on their own because they had no other choice, who'd found his empty house and somehow made it home. He thought about the last 3 months, about how the farmhouse felt alive again, about how he'd started cooking real meals and fixing things and waking up with purpose, about how these boys had cracked open the shell around his heart without even trying. He thought about Rachel and Lily, about the family he'd lost, about the guilt that had been drowning him. And then he thought about the promise he'd made to Rachel in the hospital. "I'll keep her safe." He'd failed. He'd failed so completely that it had nearly destroyed him. But maybe he could keep a different promise to 3 little boys who needed someone to fight for them. "Yeah," Marcus said, his voice rough with emotion. "I mean it. We're a family now, and families don't give up on each other." Noah launched himself at him, wrapping his small arms around his neck. Then Ethan, then Liam, who was crying harder now. Marcus held all 3 of them, and something that had been broken inside him for a year started to heal. The next morning, Marcus made a decision. He called a lawyer. The conversation was long and complicated. The lawyer, a patient woman named Patricia, explained that the situation wasn't simple. The boy's father would need to be located. His parental rights would need to be legally addressed. There would be investigations, home visits, background checks. "And if I wanted to adopt them?" Marcus asked. Patricia was quiet for a moment. "That's a lengthy process, Marcus. Could take a year or more, and there's no guarantee, but it's possible. Yes, if their father relinquishes his rights, and if you pass all the evaluations, then yes, it's possible. Then let's start. He hired her that day. That evening, he sat the boys down at their thrift store table. I need to tell you something, he said. Liam's face went pale. You're sending us away. No, the opposite. Marcus took a breath. I talked to a lawyer today. I'm going to adopt you, all three of you officially, legally. The room went absolutely silent. You what? Liam whispered. I want to be your dad if that's okay with you. Ethan started crying. Noah clutched his dinosaur to his chest. Liam just stared at him like he couldn't process the words. You mean it? He finally asked. I mean it, but why? We're not your kids. Marcus smiled. Yeah, you are. You've been my kid since the day I found you sleeping in my farmhouse and decided I wasn't going to let anything bad happen to you. Liam burst into tears. Then all three boys were crying and hugging him, and Marcus was crying too. And for the first time since the accident, he felt like he had a future. The legal process was slow and exhausting. Social workers came to the house every 2 weeks. They watched Marcus with the boys, cooking, helping with homework, reading bedtime stories. They asked questions, took notes, evaluated everything. The boy's father was located in a motel 2 towns over. When a caseworker asked if he wanted custody of his sons, he signed the paperwork relinquishing his rights without even reading it. Didn't ask where they were, didn't ask if they were okay. Marcus wanted to be angry, but mostly he just felt sad for the man, sad that he'd thrown away something so precious. The months dragged on. There were more interviews, more home visits, more paperwork, but through it all, life continued. Marcus enrolled the boys in the local elementary school. Watching them get on the bus that first morning, wearing their new backpacks and clean clothes, smiling and nervous, it was one of the best moments of his life. He taught them to ride bikes on the gravel driveway. They planted a small garden in the spring. He helped with math homework and made lunches and learned how to trim hair when they said the barber made them nervous. He learned what it meant to be a father again, and every night before bed, the boys would hug him and say, "Good night, Dad." It never got old. 9 months after Marcus first called the lawyer, he stood in a courthouse holding legal documents that would change everything. The judge smiled warmly. Mr. Sullivan, it's clear from everything I've reviewed that you've provided these boys with a stable, loving home. The social workers' reports are glowing. The boys themselves are thriving. It's my honor to finalize this adoption. Marcus's hands shook as he accepted the papers. Liam, Ethan, and Noah stood beside him in matching button-up shirts they'd picked out together. Blue like the sky, they'd said. When the judge officially declared them Liam Sullivan, Ethan Sullivan, and Noah Sullivan, the boys threw their arms around Marcus. We're really yours now, Liam whispered. You were always mine, Marcus said, his voice breaking. This just makes it official. They went home to their home and celebrated. Marcus ordered pizza. They made a cake from a box mix that came out lopsided, and they laughed until their stomachs hurt. That night, as Marcus tucked them into their real beds, he'd bought them proper beds with actual mattresses. Liam grabbed his hand. Thank you, he said, for not calling the police that first day, for giving us a chance. For everything, Marcus squeezed his hand. Thank you for saving me. We saved you. Yeah, you did. I was lost before I found you. You gave me a reason to keep going. Liam hugged him tight. I'm glad we broke into your farmhouse. Marcus laughed. Yeah, me too. For years past, like water flowing downstream, the farmhouse transformed completely. Marcus had renovated every room, painted walls, refinished floors, built a real porch. The garden had expanded. There were bikes in the yard and a basketball hoop mounted on the garage. The boys grew like wild grass. At 11, they were smart, confident, full of life. Liam was organized and driven, already talking about becoming an engineer someday. Ethan had real talent with sports. Marcus had signed him up for the local rec league, and he practiced every day. Noah covered every available surface with artwork, and Marcus had framed his favorites on the walls. Marcus had learned to pack lunches that actually tasted good. He knew how to help with science projects and mediate brother arguments and make the world's best chocolate chip pancakes. He'd learned to be a father again, and it felt right. One Saturday morning, Marcus walked into the town bakery for his usual coffee. Behind the counter was a woman he'd never seen before. Brown wavy hair, warm hazel eyes, a smile that made the whole room feel lighter. "Morning," she said. "What can I get you?" "Just coffee. Black." Bold choice. Marcus smiled. "I'm a simple guy. Are you?" "I find that's usually code for, I'm actually very complicated, but don't want to explain it before coffee." Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. "Maybe you're right. I'm Sarah, by the way. First week here." "Marcus, I've been coming here for years." "Then welcome back. Even though I had nothing to do with your previous visits, there was something easy about her, something warm." Marcus found himself lingering longer than he meant to. "You new in town, just moved from 2 counties over. Fresh start and all that." "I know something about fresh starts." Sarah's smile softened. "Yeah, how's it going?" "Better than I expected." Marcus left with his coffee and a strange, unfamiliar feeling in his chest. Something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. He came back the next Saturday and the one after that, always for coffee, always with an excuse to talk a little longer. Sarah was funny and kind and easy to talk to. She didn't pry about his past, but she listened when he wanted to share. One day, Marcus mentioned the boys. "I have 3 sons," he said. "Adopted them a few years ago." Sarah's face lit up. "Really? That's wonderful. They're amazing kids. Best thing that ever happened to me. I'd love to meet them sometime." Marcus's heart skipped. "Yeah, I'd like that." A month later, Marcus brought the boys to the bakery. They were nervous. Marcus could tell from the way Liam kept straightening his shirt, and Ethan wouldn't stop fidgeting. But Sarah was perfect with them. She asked about school, sports, and art. She complimented Noah's drawing of the farmhouse. She laughed at Ethan's jokes. As they left, Liam whispered to Marcus, "I like her." "Yeah," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice casual. "Yeah, she's nice, and she made you smile a lot." Marcus realized his son was right. He had been smiling a lot. Over the next year, Marcus and Sarah's friendship deepened into something more. They went on dates, sometimes just the 2 of them, sometimes with the boys. Sarah never tried to replace the mother the boys had lost. She just loved them exactly as they were. And when Sarah told Marcus she loved him, standing in the farmhouse kitchen on a random Tuesday evening, Marcus said it back without hesitation. When Marcus proposed a year later, the boys helped him plan it. They picked out flowers, helped choose the ring, and hid behind bushes to watch when Marcus got down on one knee in the town park. Sarah said yes. The boys cheered so loud that everyone in the park turned to look. Marcus and Sarah married on a beautiful autumn day in the farmhouse backyard. The trees were golden red. The air was crisp and perfect. Liam, Ethan, and Noah stood beside them as groomsmen, wearing suits they'd helped pick out. They stood tall and grinned throughout the entire ceremony. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," the boys whooped and clapped. Sarah became mom gradually. She didn't rush it. She let the boys come to her in their own time, and they did. Within months, Noah was showing Sarah his paintings. Ethan was teaching her basketball tricks. Liam was asking her advice about school drama. The family grew together naturally and beautifully. 2 years later, Sarah told Marcus she was pregnant. The boys screamed with excitement. They immediately started planning names, nursery colors. Who got to hold the baby first? Emma Sullivan was born on a snowy December evening. 13-year-olds Liam, Ethan, and Noah crowded into the hospital room, arguing over who got to hold their baby sister first. Marcus watched his sons with their new sister and felt overwhelming gratitude. His family, the one he thought he'd lost forever, had found him in the most unexpected way in an abandoned farmhouse where 3 scared little boys had taught him that broken hearts could heal if you let them. Emma grew up surrounded by love. Her big brothers doted on her endlessly. Liam read her bedtime stories in funny voices until she giggled herself to sleep. Ethan played catch with her in the yard as soon as she could walk. Noah painted a mural of butterflies and flowers on her nursery wall. When Emma learned to walk, all 3 boys cheered. When she spoke her first word, "Dada," they cried happy tears. When she started preschool, they made her a good luck card covered in glitter. Marcus would watch them together and think about how far they'd all come. From that first day when he found 3 terrified boys sleeping in his empty house. From the nights when they'd cried about broken promises. From the slow, careful building of trust, they'd built something beautiful, something real. The years flowed forward. Birthdays, holidays, graduations, first crushes and heartbreaks, college applications, Emma's first day of kindergarten, then middle school, then high school. Liam became an engineer, just like he'd always wanted. He worked for a firm in the city, but visited every weekend. Ethan pursued athletics, coaching youth sports, and training kids at the rec center. Noah became an artist, selling paintings at local galleries. But no matter how far they traveled or how busy life got, they always came home to the farmhouse for Sunday dinners, for holidays, for no reason at all except that it was home. Emma grew into a good kid, funny, kind, smart. Her brothers treated her like royalty. They showed up to every school play, every soccer game, every important moment, and Marcus got to watch it all, got to be there for every milestone, got to be the father he'd thought he'd never be again. 25 years after Marcus Sullivan found 3 little boys sleeping in his abandoned farmhouse, the family gathered for a portrait. The farmhouse stood behind them, strong and proud. The garden was in full bloom. The porch swing swayed gently in the breeze. Liam, Ethan, and Noah stood with their own families. Liam had 2 kids. Ethan had 1, and Noah's wife was pregnant with their first. Their wives stood beside them, smiling. Emma, home from college for the summer, stood tall beside her brothers. They still teased her relentlessly, and she loved every second of it. Marcus stood in the center, his arm around Sarah. His hair was more gray than brown now. His face was lined with years of laughter and worry and love, but his smile was full and real. The photographer adjusted his camera. "Okay, everyone, big smiles on 3. 1, 2, 3. Click." As the family broke apart, laughing and talking, Liam walked over to Marcus. He looked at him for a long moment, his eyes shining. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for not calling the police that day, for giving us a chance, for everything." Marcus's throat tightened. "Thank you for breaking into my farmhouse and refusing to leave." Liam laughed, tears streaming down his face. "Best decision we ever made." Ethan and Noah joined them, wrapping their arms around their father. Then Emma piled on, then Sarah, then the grandkids, giggling as they climbed onto the group hug. Marcus closed his eyes, surrounded by the people he loved most. He'd bought this farmhouse to escape, to hide from grief, to be alone. But 3 little boys had taught him something he'd never forget. Sometimes the family you need finds you when you least expect it. And when it does, you hold on tight. You fight for it. You build a life together out of broken pieces and second chances and love that refuses to give up, and you call it home. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, please don't let it end here. Let it remind you kindness still matters, compassion still changes lives, and hope is never wasted. Subscribe and be part of our Soul Lift Stories family, where every story lifts the spirit and reminds us that light always finds its way back. And if this moment moved you, share it.